I knew he wasn't normal when my flashlight hit his feet and nothing landed behind them. The beam pushed hard across the tile, bright enough to hurt my eyes, and there was no dark shape where there should have been. Just him, and the light, and clean floor. I didn't believe it right then. I told myself it was the shine or the angle. I told myself a lot of things. That was later. I started the shift the same as always, 10 at night. 3 buildings tied together by those glass halls the day people liked, because they could see the courtyards and pretend they were outside. At night, those halls felt like fish tanks. 5 floors, 2 stairwells, a roof door I never opened, and a long loading dock at the back with the roll-up doors. My desk sat by the monitors near the main lobby. The camera feeds covered almost everything except a few blind corners in the far east wing, the second-floor conference hall, and a strip by the lockers at the dock. I knew all the dead spots. I knew which motion sensors stuck and which lights hummed. I knew the sound of my own keys. They hung heavy at my hip. When I walked, they clicked like a metronome. The first 2 hours were nothing. I made the round, scanned the checkpoints, locked the doors. I always locked. I said night to the cleaner who left the lobby at 11. After she went, the building felt hollow. You know that feeling when the air has a space in it? Not sound, just that empty. I put on the kettle and made bad coffee. I watched the cameras and rotated through them. I listened to the radio static and shrugged the jacket on because the vents on our block blew cold after midnight. At 12:22, the north stairwell motion chime blinked on the board. It ticked on by itself sometimes when the air pressure changed with the exterior doors, so I didn't move right away. Then it blinked again. 2 hits. I checked the feed. The stairwell looked clear. Just the concrete steps and the metal rails and the painted landing. I sat there and tried to tell myself it was a mouse. The stair camera had a blind spot under the first flight where the lens couldn't see. I watched a while. Nothing. The chime went quiet. I grabbed my light anyway and did the West Hall first, because I always did the West Hall first. It was habit. I rattled the door to HR. Locked. I passed the big copy room. The fluorescent over the copier popped and went black as I walked under it. It made that little sound, like a bug hitting a zapper, and a flake of glass landed on my shoulder. I brushed it off and swore. I told myself the ballast was bad. I logged the bulb for maintenance in the morning. I moved on. When I got to the north stairwell, the door was propped a finger width by a folded visitor pass. I hadn't done that. No one else should have. I stood there with my hand on the bar and my fingers felt cold from the metal. I pushed it open slow. My keys made a small clink against the rail. The stairwell smelled like dust. I shined the light down. The beam cut the steps into white slices. I didn't see anyone. I went down 1 flight. I listened. The building groaned the way buildings do when they settle. The motion chime didn't trip. I went down to ground floor. The door to the exterior was latched, and the crash bar sat flush. I checked it, and it didn't give. I told myself someone leaned on the bar from inside and the pass slipped. I pulled it out of the jam. I pocketed it and moved back up. On the second floor by the conference hall, the hallway lights had that faint buzz. My breath looked like smoke for a second when I turned the corner. Just one little puff. The air there always ran cold because the vent was near. I knew that. Still, I wiped my nose with the back of my hand and tasted metal, like the air in freezer cases at grocery stores. I looked at the glass wall where they hung the donor names. It reflected the hall behind me. Except it didn't. My shadow sat wrong in the glass. It drooped left when I moved right. It corrected when I stopped. When I stepped again, it lagged a half beat. I stepped sideways and watched it catch up a second late. I stood there and said, "No," out loud. Then I took 2 steps and the reflection fell into normal. I breathed and told myself it was the angle. I wrote down the time on my log because something in me wanted the numbers. 12:37. I went back to the desk and rolled through the feeds again. East Wing lobby. Clear. 3rd floor outputs. Clear. Dock Bay 2. A pallet jack leaned where I left it. I scratched my arm and I watched myself on the main lobby fisheye, head bent over the keyboard, the desk lamp cutting a circle on the wood. I looked up in real life and looked up in the feed. At first they matched. Then the screen froze for a second. When it came back, the clock in the corner jumped. 12:41 to 12:48. 7 minutes gone. My on-screen self looked exactly as I did, and then I wasn't there, and then the light was a different brightness, and my coffee mug had moved half an inch. I looked at the mug. It sat where I had put it. Maybe I had nudged it. I told myself the server glitched. It did that sometimes when the Wi-Fi acted up. Still, I rolled the footage back. The freeze happened every time I hit 12:41. I sighed and called it into base. Dispatch, Unit 1, I said. The radio hissed. It did that too. It always hissed. Tonight, it felt like it hissed inside my ear. Go, came the voice. It sounded thinner than normal. Or maybe I was hearing things. Camera 5 dropped frames. Could be nothing. I'm gonna put it in the report. Quote, ... Dropped frames, the radio said, and then the hiss roared. It had my voice at the end like a repeat, but wrong. Say again, I said. Nothing. Just the white noise, and under it the thump of my own pulse because I had the bud in too far. I put the radio down. I made another round. The second time through, the hall lights on the 3rd floor dimmed while I walked. Like someone rolled a wheel. One by one they dipped and came back, like a wave. I looked up. They were the same fixtures we had last week. No work orders for them. My keys clicked against my thigh. The sound kept me from thinking too much. I counted the doors. Labs. Offices. The big open area with the long empty tables where papers blew around little from the vent. A motion sensor ticked the light in the far corner. It went on and then off, and there wasn't anything there to trip it. I switched it to manual and it still blinked. I wiped my hand on my jacket and moved on, because what else would I do? You walk. That's the job. At 1:10, the generator coughed. Not full, just a stutter when the line dipped. The overhead strobed once in the lobby and then went steady. The hum under the floor changed tone. It always did that for a second when the power flirted with the backup. I looked at the camera board and 2 feeds went black and came back. I tapped the screen with my finger. On the right side, East Wing entrance, a figure walked past the far end. Small, thin, hands in pockets, hood up, no reflection on the glass door. I watched it in real time. The light over that door was bright. It threw shadows like a stage light. His didn't. The floor there was polished so hard I could read the fire code in it when I bent over. This guy walked across it and there was nothing. His feet touched. The floor stayed the same. My fingers shook and hit the rewind. I watched it again. Same. No shadow. No smear. No break in the glow. He peeled off into the blind corner by the vending machines where the camera didn't see. I got up so fast my chair pushed back and hit the file cabinet. It made a bang. I didn't like that I made a bang. I grabbed my flashlight and my radio and I told myself it was some strange angle again, that the light hit from under. But I knew that light. I had changed that bulb last week. I went east. My keys bounced at my belt and I wished they wouldn't. The jingling gave me away. Every time I stepped, they did that little laugh. I cupped them with my hand to quiet them. Right there, the hall got colder. I could feel the air change like walking into a walk-in. The door to the vending machines is always locked at night because kids would sneak in from the dorms back when this building was part of the campus. I checked it. Locked. I looked in through the glass. My face looked back, smeared by the safety wire. When I moved, there was a drag. The reflection's mouth didn't open when mine did. I don't know how else to say it. It shut a beat after. I stepped away and swallowed. I felt stupid, like I was scaring myself on purpose. I told myself that too. I heard a door shut behind me. Not hard. Just that soft, deliberate sound of a latch catching. I turned. The conference hall door at the end of the corridor was closed. I had left it cracked. I know I had because I had done the leg kick to test it, and it touched my shoe. My light shook across the carpet as I walked. I tried the handle. It moved under my palm and went farther than a latch should. The door opened into dark. I put the beam in and swept. Rows of chairs turned to face the screen. A plastic water bottle on the dais. The motion sensor snapped the overheads on, bright as day. In the back of the room, by the emergency exit, someone stood. I said, "Hey," before I thought. It came out weak. "Hey." He didn't move. He wore a hood. The light over him was cruel. Every chair cast a long shadow. The water bottle cast a little fat shadow. He didn't cast one. My own shadow worked fine. It lay across him like a stripe and didn't bend or stop. The wall behind him stayed clean, like he was cut out of the world. I walked 2 steps closer. He turned his head. I couldn't see his face under the hood. Just the pale color where his chin should have been. Too smooth. Maybe I pictured that after. I don't know. All I know is there was nothing on the wall behind him where he should have been. Not even a soft outline. My mouth went dry. My tongue felt like paper. I thumbed the shoulder mic. Unit 1 to dispatch. I have an intruder in the East Conference Hall. Send police, I said. I kept my voice steady like the training videos said. The radio sparked and spoke, and it was my voice again. Send police. Then a crackle. Then a long rush of air. No reply. He stood there. I took out my phone and hit 911 with my thumb without taking the light off him. The screen glowed in my hand. It said calling, and then nothing. No sound. Like the speaker broke. I didn't hear the ring. I didn't hear the operator. I pulled it away and looked. The numbers ticked up. 003. 004. No one spoke. At 007 it cut and my home screen came back. He took a step. I took a step back. The lights in the room stayed bright. That bothered me for some reason. My brain expected them to die. They didn't. Everything else in my life kept working. The light worked. The door turned. Keys jingled. But the world was wrong in this one place. I said, "You need to stop right there." He kept coming. His steps made a sound, light and slow. His shoes looked normal. Cheap sneakers. The beam made them white. I held the light low, told myself center mass, just like they said in the video. He didn't stop. He moved like he had a place to be, and I was just in the hall. I stepped out of the doorway to get better footing. My heel found the lip of the carpet and I stumbled. He crossed the distance dead straight. My hand went to my keys because I do that when I'm nervous. They gave themselves away with a little shake. I tried to plant my feet. He didn't run. He walked right to me like he knew I'd freeze. He hit me in the chest with 2 hands. Not hard like a punch, just steady, cold pressure. Cold like dry ice through a shirt. I went back into the hall and my shoulder hit the jamb. I felt something pull at my throat. Not nails. Fingers. I put my hand up and I touched skin. Skin that felt wrong. Not damp. Not warm. It was so cold my palm burned. The grip closed and my spit caught in my throat. I hit him with the flashlight without aiming. It thunked against something that didn't give the way a shoulder gives. The beam spun and caught our legs. Mine threw a shadow on the floor, long and shaky. His feet didn't. Not a smudge. I clawed at his wrist and my nails went numb. He smelled like nothing. That was the worst part. There was no sweat. No breath. Just air. I brought the light up with both hands and jammed it under his hood, trying to drive him away. The metal touched his jaw, and the cold came through the beam like it could ride it. The light splashed his face and there was a blur, and then the hood came down across it. It looked like it slid on its own, but I know my hand pushed it. He let go and my throat made a horrible sound, wet and high. I grabbed the wall and my chest burned. When I looked back, he was retreating toward the exit. Not running. Walking like before. I swore and went after him because I was angry and sick and didn't want him loose in my building. He moved into the stairwell. I hit the bar and went through. The stairwell light hummed and flickered a little. He took the steps slow and even, 2 at a time, and I clattered after. Halfway down, the light over the next landing blinked out. Then the one below it. A wave coming, rolling up from the ground floor. I felt the air change with each one. As the light died, the cold crawled up with it. I kept the beam on his back and it lay flat like it hit a wall. He turned once and I saw nothing under the hood, just the curve of fabric. I drove my shoulder into him. He slid aside at the last second and I hit the rail. My ribs sang. A hand went around the back of my neck. It crawled up under my hair and clamped. I tried to pry it off and my fingers stuck to his like they were wet in winter. He leaned. That was all. He leaned and my face went close to the rail and I saw my reflection on the brushed metal. It looked like me, except my outline blurred a little at the edges. His wasn't there. All that metal and lights and my face and the stair run behind me. No trace of him. I said, "Let go," into the rail. It sounded small. He did. I fell to my hands and knees and coughed until I saw sparkles. I had to move. I was afraid if I didn't keep him in sight, he would end up behind me, somehow using the spaces I couldn't see. I went down the last flight with my side screaming and I hit the ground floor door with the bar, and then the cheap alarm squealed because that door always thought someone propped it, even when they didn't. The sound filled my head. The hall beyond led to the dock. Faint light came from under the double doors there. The green glow of exit signs painted the walls. He went for the dock, like he knew the layout better than me. I kept him in the light. I said one stupid thing. I said, "What do you want?" He didn't answer. He hit the dock doors, and they gave because the push bars weren't keyed on the inside. I followed, and as I did, the overhead tubes along the dock started dying. Not all at once. One by one ahead, a click, then dark. It moved toward us, 10 fixtures in a row, like a song. I heard the generator cough again. The power line dipped and then held. The emergency light strip stayed on, so there was red on the floor and white from the little truck bay markers, and the sodium lamps over the roll-ups burned hard and steady. They made hard shadows. I knew that because I looked at my feet. A dark shape lay under me, crisp and black. He moved and nothing followed him. That fixed it in my head like a nail. There was no dodging it anymore. It wasn't the angle. It wasn't my eyes. He didn't cast a shadow. He reached the end of the dock where the forklift sat plugged in. The mirror by the safety booth showed us both from the side. It showed me. It showed the forklift. It showed the columns. Where he should have been, there was the forklift again. Like the glass refused him and filled the space with the closest thing. I could see the truck bay beyond through his outline, and it shook like heat. I was 3 steps out, and I could do one of 2 things. Go back and lock him in, or go forward and try to push him out the roll-up and hit the switch. I did the second. I went right at him with the light in my fist. He turned and put his hands up, and I felt my skin shrink because I knew that grip. He put one hand flat on my chest. It felt like a freezer shelf left open. I swung the light and connected with the side of his head. The beam skated across the hood and blew the color out of everything. The dock snapped to white for a second. When my eyes adjusted, the light was on the floor. He had knocked it away and it spun in circles, still on, like a wheel. The beam hit my legs and made a shadow that hopped with each spin. It hit him and made nothing. We shoved each other like 2 tired kids. He didn't breathe hard. I did. My throat stung. I got a hand on his sleeve. The fabric felt wrong, slick and dry, and cold like winter steel. I pushed him into the metal pillar by Bay 4. His back hit it and he made no sound. I reached the panel and slapped every switch. The big sodium lamps over the dock ladders came on and the world turned yellow. I flooded everything I could. The forklift charger made a deep hum. The emergency floods over the exterior ramp burned so bright the bugs outside hit them and popped. Light hit him from 3 angles and he still made nothing. He was a cutout stuck in all that glow. He pressed his hand to the glass of the small window on the roll-up, like he wanted to see outside. When he lifted it away, a handprint stayed. I watched it. I couldn't stop watching it. It turned frost white, like when you breathe on a mirror. It spread at the edges and the center went clear. My mouth filled with spit, and I had to swallow twice to get it down. "Get out," I said. "Get out! Get out!" My voice shook and made a sound like the radio. He didn't move at my words. He moved when I grabbed my light back up and put everything I had into cracking it across his elbow. He stepped sideways. I hit the roll-up button. The door screamed as it went up. Outside, the loading ramp lay empty in the yellow spill. He didn't go out. He went the other way, back along the dock, and the lights over him died in order as he passed under each, like he took the light somewhere I couldn't see. They came back behind him. He stepped into the locker's blind spot, and I lost him for a second. My chest heaved. I stepped after with the light high, and as I came, even with the blind spot, he pushed. Fast this time. Harder. I went sideways into the lockers, and they rattled. He slid off toward the service hall and would have been gone, but his foot scuffed, and that was the first real sound he made besides steps, and it made me mad again, that dumb little sound. I tackled him, and we went down. I landed hard on my knees and my skin stung like needles. He got a hand around my throat again and squeezed. Spots came. I felt the ring of my keys cut into my belly. I grabbed them without thinking. A handful of metal and my big master and the weird long square one for the roof. I jammed them into his wrist. The cold jumped up into the keys and into my hand. It hurt. He loosened for half a second and I rolled away coughing. I scrambled to the wall and hit the dock master switch. Every light on that line went full and held. The place snapped like noon. The hum made my fillings ache. He stood there in the middle of it and the concrete stayed the same under him. Clean. Nothing. No outline. No dark. The frost handprint on the window by the door didn't melt. He straightened his hood with slow fingers and looked at me. I couldn't see his eyes. I still knew he looked. I felt it. Something in me answered. My body wanted to shiver, but I had run out of shake. "Leave," I said again. "Please." It came small. I don't know if he listened or if I imagined it, but he took 3 steps backward to the open roll-up and he went up the ramp into the light, and then up into the night. He didn't turn. He didn't hurry. The night took him because it takes everyone who goes. The sodium lamps outside hummed. Bugs hit them and fell. He walked out of my sight. I stood with my back to the lockers and I let the lights burn my eyes. I called 911 again. This time it rang. The operator spoke. My voice worked. My radio clicked and dispatch asked if I was okay. I said, no. And then, I need someone. And then, I'm fine. I didn't know which one was true. The cops came at 1:40. They took my statement. They walked the building with me and checked the doors and told me it was probably a break-in by a meth head. They looked at the docks. They touched the window where the handprint had sat. It had melted by then. They saw the camera feeds and I showed them the piece where the guy walked past the east wing lens and didn't cast anything. The officer squinted and said, bad compression, like he knew cameras. Maybe he did. He told me to go home and rest after finishing the report. He said to call if I saw him again. Then he left and the building was mine again. I sat with the lights on and watched the monitors until shift change. At 3:10, the server finished its autosync and the time gaps filled and then left new ones. When I scrubbed back to the dock, the chase looked ugly. Me pounding switches and running. Him walking like it was a mall. The light flares blew out detail. You could still see the floor. You could still see me. You could see my shadow. You could see his absence. I saved clips. I labeled them for the manager. I held my hands around the coffee for heat. My left ring finger burned in a stripe where his hand had touched. My throat had marks. I could feel them when I swallowed. I called my wife and didn't tell her anything. I quit the next morning. I told the manager I had bronchitis and I coughed, and he TSKED and said to take 2 days. I said no. I said, I'm done. He looked at me hard, and then he stopped because he saw the bruises. He didn't ask. I gave him the badge and the keys. They were heavy in my hand. When I let go, I wanted them back, and then I didn't. I came home and sat at the table and watched my dog stare at the patio door. I wrote this because I need it out of me. It won't go, but I have to try. Here is the part one haven't told anyone else. It is stupid, and it is small, and it is everything. I went back over the footage for myself before I left. I wanted to see the 8 minutes I lost at 12:41. The server hiccup had settled by then. The blank had filled. The clip showed the lobby from the fisheye. It showed me sitting at the desk with my mouth align. It showed me get up and knock the chair into the file. It showed me grab the light and go. All normal, if you forget the rest. Then, as I left the frame, I saw the shine on the floor under the desk. My shadow should have slid over the tile when I walked. It didn't. For 3 steps, right there by my chair, my legs moved and there was no dark under them. It came back near the door like nothing happened. I watched it 10 times. I moved the rubber band on my wrist up and down while I watched to mark the times. It was there. Gone. There. Like you pull a coin and put it back before the kid sees. I can't explain it. I'm not smart enough to. I only know what the camera kept. Maybe he brushed me in the hall, and maybe that did it. Maybe it doesn't matter. Since then, when the sun drops and the lamps come on, sometimes I catch myself in the window and the dark under me slides off a second late, like it has to think. Sometimes, for 2 or 3 steps in my own kitchen, nothing follows my feet. I stand under the stove hood and I go ice cold. The dog won't come in right away. The house lights dim and then hold. The radio in the garage whispers with no one touching it. I hear the jingle of my keys at the wrong times and I don't carry them anymore. I'm writing this because I don't have a good end. The marks on my throat looked like fingers. They faded. The cold in my hands didn't. The last thing I hear when I try to sleep is the sound my keys made when I let them go, and how it didn't throw a shadow on the table when it should have, just for a second, and the small sound they made, that thin ring, from a place where no shadow hung. Eekend. Every story has a price. For this one, it's simple. A like and a subscribe. That's how we keep the ritual going. Miss a step, and the next upload might not find you. See you in the next one.